Right, the recording has started, and welcome again to this session. As I said, it may be a very short session, depending on whether we have another power outage, but let's hope that doesn't happen. Anyway, but before we start, as usual, may I draw your attention to the disclaimer that I know you can see on your screen. As you know, trading can be a risky business, so please don't ever think of using money that you cannot afford to lose. And as always, we will be looking at the forex market. We'll be looking at charts using the methodology volume price analysis, which is, I suppose, it's volume analysis to help validate whether the price action we see on the chart is genuine or not. And best way to see how the methodology works is to see it in action at the live edge of the market, and obviously on past charts, because with VPA, when VPA signals, if you like, once you get a feel for them, they do repeat. They repeat in all markets and in all timeframes. But of course, we will also have to take note of what's happening on the fundamental side. And we also look at what is happening at related markets, in particular, to gauge what sentiment is. And in fact, this morning, sentiment is still reasonably positive. I think let's have a quick look at Forex Factory. It was a bit of a quiet day yesterday for news generally, and it's a quietish day anyway. And sometimes is the Monday after NFP. The story of the day yesterday was the continued bounce in the US dollar, although it did come off slightly at the US session. But what have we had so far? I have to say, I don't know, like you, I don't know why all of a sudden news for the UK, for the British pound, seems to be coming out at 7 o'clock in the morning. Can't find any reason why. Even the BOE last week, that it came out at 7, and for a moment I was completely thrown. But here we've had some employment data come out at 7, and obviously that will cause a little bit of volatility and moves, and then you have the usual moves that you get at the London Open. After that, we really have to wait till 10. We've got the ZEW for Germany. All these items of fundamental news are given sort of, then when they're in red, they're considered to be high impact. They may be or they may not be, depending on the economic cycle that we're in at the moment, the business cycle, the pandemic cycle that we're in at the moment. But it's with fundamental news, you first of all you need to learn to read it as you would a chart almost, because that's what it represented as a chart. But more importantly, you have to see it in context. It is in the context of where we are in the broader market, and something that is all explained in our forex program. And in fact, about the US dollar, it says a perfect headline: US dollar down, but is it out? So anyway, we shall see. Going back to the disclaimer and my slides very quickly. So that's the methodology, what we've done for the forex market, but this is a very particular market, the forex market. And the first thing that's particular about it is that you are trading one currency against another. You're not looking at a single instrument such as oil or gold or a stock. And whilst with a stock, maybe you would certainly consider the fundamental metrics for that stock, and you would also need to know, is it in a sector that is what is called a defensive sector? Is it a growth stock? Is it a value stock? You are still trading one stock. You're not trading, you haven't got a ticker that says that you are trading Apple, versus, with Microsoft as the counterparty. That is the difference with the forex market. So it gives it a degree of complexity. Doesn't mean it's complicated, it's just complex. So what we've done is we have created these very, very particular indicators to kind of tease apart, to give us an insight of where the money is flowing into the different currencies, And we start with the currency strength indicator. We have the matrix, which ranks the pairs. We have an array, which gives us an idea of the strength of the trend. And then we have a currency heat map, which looks at the currency pairs in a number of different ways. Not least, you have the multiple time frames up, and you have these little cells which turn to green and red. So you can have an instant snapshot of whether that currency pair is moving up, moving down, but it also ranks the pairs in a very particular way. So very comprehensive tools to help you, as I said, begin to make sense of what is happening in the forex market. But the best way to see them, how they operate, how they function, what they can do for you, is to actually see them in action. Very, very quickly, let's have a quick whiz round the markets. And what do we look at? Well, we look at, that's the S&P, that's the Dow, actually, US 30 Dow futures, that's up 89. The S&P, that's slightly up, and the NASDAQ, let's have a look, it went down yesterday but then came back up again. For some reason, the NASDAQ has been taken off my my little table here, which is jolly annoying, but anyway, I'll have to get hold of investing.com. We've had a double, if you look at the daily chart for the NASDAQ, it's quite interesting. We had a 2-bar reversal here, and it did actually go down. And yesterday, it was it wasn't a deep fall, but it was a fall in the NASDAQ before it actually pushed back higher. And we can see here, it is trying to move over, trying to move higher, but it is a very, very narrow spread, as you would expect. It's Globex, although we have had some huge moves in Globex previously. Okay, so that's where we are. This is how I normally start. This is my dashboard, and I have the hourly chart for the CSI, and I have a matrix up here, and it really tells me what has been happening overnight. Where has the money flow been going to? And what I can do is I can isolate the currencies here. I can just take them on and off. The first currency we can possibly have a look at very quickly is the Japanese yen, because that's the one we want to see. Is that being bought? Is that being sold? As that generally reflects market sentiment, in the sense that if the yen is being sold, then we know the market is positive. It's willing to take on more risk, as it were. Equities will be rising, and I believe they did hold up fairly well in Asia. So it's no surprise to see the yen fall in the overnight session, and it's reached this extreme level here. This number here doesn't really mean anything in the sense of it's significance, because it's 20. It's simply a way of denoting that the currency has reached a point of potential reversal. But if you put the euro back on, you can see here currencies are perfectly capable of, as any market is, of going much, much lower, and we can see here moving sideways and then falling some more. Now what that means is, first of all, it is very overextended, and in terms of what is likely to happen in terms of price action when it does turn over, when you have such a strong move, either up or down, when it does then reverse, you will find it can reverse quite quickly. There could be some momentum in that move. It's a bit like an elastic band. You pull it, the more you pull it, when you let go, it will snap back very, very quickly. And of course, you have to bear in mind this is a market of mean reversion. It's always looking to find that balance, if you like, that value area, that zone where it'll happily transact and move sideways. And we have an indicator to help us with that as well. The reason I've got the euro down and I want to highlight is because, of course, the Canadian dollar has been, it was actually the pair that I looked at yesterday on my forex trading page, and it did actually produce a really, really nice move. The move started at this point here where we had the divergence, as we can see here. This is how these lines work. The lines tell you an awful lot. Not only do they pick up potential trading opportunities where you are going to get this, and we want to see this strong divergence, and we know that there's a there is a good move potentially underway. Now this is the hourly chart, so obviously the move will have already started on the faster time frames. But what was interesting about the EuroCAD, I think for the rest of the session it actually carried on across sessions, and in fact it came out at over 100 pips. But because the EuroCAD is not necessarily a particularly heavily traded pair, you can get a degree of volatility. And in fact, when we pull up the chart for the pair before it actually picks up the move itself, what I did is I have the 30-minute chart. Let's have a look. And I also had the 10-minute chart. There we are. And as we can see here, the commentary is above here, so it's slightly obscured what I wanted to show you. But essentially, what we had here, if we move over to the left of the commentary, this is actually coming just coming up before London, and we can see here there were an awful lot of volatility candles triggered. This is the volume point of control. This is the zone on the chart where the pair is in balance, if you like. In market profile, it's called the value area, and it's where traders they're just transacting. There's no strong bias either one way or another, but there will be attempts to move it up and then attempts to move it down. It did eventually move lower, but not until sort of mid-morning. There was an awful lot of sideways movement, and then we had the move lower, and the primary trend did actually get underway. But you have to notice there were an awful lot of pullbacks in this. Then we had another volatility candle here. So it's not a very smooth trend. Now what's also interesting is when we look at the side here, this is the histogram for the volume point of control. Usually in a very heavily traded pair, this shading will come over and cover sometimes a great deal of the chart, because it tells you there is much more participation in this pair. On the 30-minute chart, obviously with multiple time frames, when you have volatility down on the faster time frames, that is obviously smoothed out on the slower time frames. And the 30-minute and the hourly charts are pretty good charts to help, as I said, smooth that out. But if you look at this particular pair, when, as I said, it can be volatile, partly because it isn't so heavily traded. When you have low liquidity, then when you do get a move, it will spike that much more. But this is the congestion phase in the chart. This is actually the start of the new trading week, the 10th. Here we are. This was overnight on Sunday. But look, very, 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 very narrow spread candles, hardly any volume, which is what you would expect, because this is the Asia session. Neither euro nor the EuroCAD going to be heavily traded. Then we had that volatility that we saw in all those candles on the 10-minute, all expressed in this one 30-minute candle. A big move down, reasonable amount of volume under that. But as with volatility, with the trigger of the volatility candle, the first thing that happens, you do get this retrace to within the spread of the candle. There is an attempt to rise, and really, if that happens there, what do you do as a trader? Well, two things can happen when this is triggered. First, three things. You get a retrace, you get a congestion, or you will get a complete reversal. In this case, we had a retrace, then we had a congestion with an attempt to rise. Not a huge amount of volume under this candle here, which is the sort of key one onto the upside. So what do? Well, then you really have to wait, because the volatility candle will then give you the high, if you like, the high and the low that needs to be broken before the move continues. Now, what also happens is we have developed the trend dot and the trend monitor. monitor, that was actually, these are actually red. That has actually moved to red as well. So you could say, well, you know, on the balance of probabilities, this is actually going to continue lower. So depending as you as a trader, how aggressive you want to be, or perhaps a little bit more conservative, you could say, well, I'm actually going to wait until that low is taken out on you know, on a reasonable amount of volume, and then I can potentially join the move lower. And it goes lower, it hits this, it actually breaks through this support over here. It moves, it then tests, comes down to test this this line here. Where you have a thicker line on the support and resistance indicator for MC4, you know that that is a it's stronger than the hatch line. But look at these, you know, then you have these two, again, attempt to rise. We have a pivot, we have volume. Now you have, okay, you have that volume under that candle, and you have tiny bit more volume under a candle that is twice the size of this one. So that, what does that tell you? It tells you that this move higher, although it looks impressive in terms of price action, because this down here doesn't actually support this candle, you know it is probably not going to go very far, and in fact it doesn't, and in fact it carries on lower, and we actually get a really nice waterfall. And to help us with our support and resistance levels, what I did was, on the hourly chart for our Camarilla levels, this is on the hour, all these levels here coincided with the pause points in the move lower for the Euro Aussie. And what's nice here, as I said, with the lines give you not just points at which the currencies are potentially going to, currency pairs are going to diverge and set up a potential trade for you, but what they also tell you is when they're moving sideways, as they are here, and they're moving together, then you know that it's confirming that the pair is in a congestion. It may be a wide congestion, it may be a very narrow congestion. Sometimes you'll find that the more they're twisted together, the narrower the range that is being traded on the chart, and that is what we saw yesterday. And interestingly, it got to this S4, the fourth level of Camarilla, be it S4 or R4, is a very important level in terms of the protocol for the indicator. We've actually got 6 levels on the Camarilla, but the fourth, what tends to happen, if it does break through, it will often, in fact, I would say 99% of the time, it will go back and retest. And you know, and if it's a fake break of the S4, it will actually go and reverse off the S4. It did go back and retest and carry on lower. And I think what I said in my analysis was I would expect this to continue moving sideways. And interestingly, as we can see here, it has continued to move sideways. If I just bring up the Euro CAD, and I'll just finish on this one, here we are. This is up to date at the moment. What we have here on the daily chart, this is the candle that we had yesterday. It did actually attempt to move higher, but as we can see here, there is quite a lot of bearish pressure on the pair. On the hourly, let's bring this right up to date. This was the break, as we saw here on the S4. We had a retest, then it moved lower. We did have a congestion. We've actually got a 2-bar reversal within the this zone just below the S4 and the S5. It's gone low, and in fact it has moved to test the S5. So you know what these levels tell you. They will not only tell you where the pair is likely to be heading to, what is likely to happen when they get there. They will also help with placing stops. They will also help you to determine that if you see a trading opportunity on a faster time frame or from highlighted by the CSI, whether you know it is going to give you either another trading opportunity or you want to add to a position that you may already be in. So clearly the S5 is now the level to watch. If we bring up the intraday levels, those of you who know have the indicator will know the levels on the hourly chart up to the day. These are valid for the rest of the week. So it was quite interesting that, you know, the first major session of the week and the Euro CAD actually sort of chewed through levels that are in play for the rest of the week. But the intraday levels which are recalculated on every 24 hours, are quite interesting as well. And where are we now? We're at the at the S1. We've broken down from the R1, and you can see here, this is the congestion that we have at the moment, which is reflecting what we see on the hourly CSI. It is overextended. We could get a reversal, but as I said, things currency pairs, markets, they can stay overextended for a lot longer than you and I can stay solvent. So that's the Euro CAD. And at the moment, what am I looking at the moment? Well, the Euro CAD is obviously one that is interestingly in play. Where other moves that we've had? Well, the pound seems to be selling off. So let's see which pairs look interesting. Well, the pound New Zealand, certainly there's been a move in that, but what has happened is now the move has we have had divergence, but the pairs look the lines look to be moving in the same direction. So again, we could be looking at congestion there. So the CSI gives you all this information without you having to go and look at individual charts. Now I'm going to pass over to David and see what he has managed to salvage from the wreck of his computer. If you've got any questions, just pop them into the chat box. And as I said, and if we do disappear suddenly, it's because we've had another power failure.